Appreciate the opportunity and always happy to discuss autonomous systems, remote ops, anything that's next tech, next gen level with in the maritime sector.
Well, I appreciate it very much you coming on and talking to us about this. So, one of the first questions I do have before we get started is I think that not everyone understands the difference between unmanned and autonomous. So, when it comes to that, I'm hoping you can shed some light on that before we dig in, because I do think some of the questions will come up later. We're going to talk about that a little bit more detail. So, if you don't mind answering that first, I'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, sure. The easiest way to put it is you can think of remote control. It's just remote. There's still a human in the loop doing everything that needs to be done, making all the decisions. So, which way is the boat going to be pointed? Which way is the camera pointed? All those things. What's that threat level? What decision am I going to make on this crossing as this vessel's coming towards me? Autonomy, and there's multiple levels of autonomy for if you talk about it with the IMO. And what it really gets down to is, how much are you allowing the system to make up its own mind, make its own decisions? And obviously, the golden egg that everyone wants is vessels that fully drive like a person does, whether that's via computer vision based autonomy, meshed with radar AIS interaction. But that's just varying levels as it goes up.
Yeah. So when we think about autonomous and unmanned, we kind of think about them the same way sometimes. So thank you for that clarification. It is an important distinction, especially in your world, because the human in the loop piece of it gets to be really important. Um, okay, so let's dive in. So one of
Sure.
the things that you face when you're looking at these vessels and they're out at sea for an extended period of time is the actual operations conditions that they have to work under. One of the biggest problems is that in the lab, it's really hard to test this. And there's not enough, from what I understand, there's not enough ocean labs out there to fully test. So, when you're going from the lab environment, and I know that you guys work with a lot of different systems out there, you're not necessarily a system designer, but you're a system tester. So you're working with a lot of systems that are out there. So when you look at these systems and they're going from lab to actually environment, what are some of the sort of conditions and fail proof kind of things that these vessels have to have in order to operate in these unpredictable sea states?
Well, you're getting to the point now where you're able to negate some of that via digital twin engineering, where you're able to effectively take a proper digital twin model of a vessel and put it in real world environments and run it for X numbers of hours and see what can shake loose, what the fallout is. Um, you know, but outside of that, the people who design the boats aren't the people that drive the boats, and then the people that do drive the autonomous or remote boats, they're not always able to facilitate the interaction of pitch yaw roll. You're going 40 knots and you're in sea state 3. You're not feeling the constant interaction with the vessel that you would if you were on it. And so all you're really seeing is just the camera jerking, and you're like,
Mhm.
well, it's fine. No one's on it. It just needs to get there. And that's where you start having failures in the actual, whether it's the hull or the mechanical or the electrical systems. Things shake loose, they break, and so what you need to do to kind of alleviate as much of that as you can is obviously a dedicated testing with your asset. Starts in house in the lab, and then goes and it walks itself up from small harbor testing to actually out ocean going sea acceptance trials, and then endurance trials where you're going additional hundreds of kilometers at certain speeds to get your range, fuel, etc. And so just a graduated curve, so to speak, of testing that starts in the lab and but ends with really a human in the loop and a human on the boat, making sure that you can go 30 knots in sea state 3 without completely the boat shaking itself to death.